The road to a World Cup final runs through nights like this one. Tuesday, July the 14th, 2026. AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, wrapped in blue and red, ready to host what many called the real final before the final. Forget the bracket for a moment. Forget the seeding, the group stage, the long march through June and into July. This was the matchup neutrals had circled the moment the draw was made. Not because of history, though there was plenty of that. Not because of rivalry, though rivalry there certainly was. It was circled because of sheer weight of talent, two rosters so deep that either one could have fielded a credible starting 11 from its substitutes alone. Everything about the setting matched the occasion. A sold-out AT&T Stadium, one of the great cathedrals of American sport, retrofitted for a night of European football that felt in every sense like a final a week early. The Texas Heat had barely broken by kickoff. The air inside the stadium carried that particular charge that only comes with knowing history is about to be made, one way or another. Two European giants, two very different stories. France, chasing history, a shot at becoming the first nation ever to reach 3 straight World Cup finals. Spain, chasing redemption, 16 years removed from their only world title, hunting a second star to sit above the crest. On paper, this looked like an avalanche of talent that no scoreline could contain. France arrived with Kylian Mbappé, Ousmane Dembélé, Mikel Olise, and Désiré Doué, 4 attackers capable of turning a match on a single touch. Spain countered with the brightest young spine in world football, Lamine Yamal terrorizing fullbacks, Pedri and Fermin orchestrating the midfield, and a defense that had conceded almost nothing all tournament. That last detail mattered more than anyone outside the Spanish camp seemed to realize. Coming into the semifinal, Spain had allowed only a single goal across 6 matches. Not 6 good performances, 6 matches. 1 goal. It was the kind of defensive record that gets dismissed as a statistical footnote right up until the moment it becomes the story of the night. Didier Deschamps stood on the touchline for what everyone sensed might be his final match in charge of France, regardless of the result. A decade plus at the helm, a World Cup title in 2018, a final appearance in 2022, his legacy with this national team was already secure. But tonight carried a different kind of weight. Win, and he would guide France into uncharted territory. A 3rd straight World Cup final, a feat that had eluded every great side in the tournament's near century of history. Lose, and questions about succession, about what comes next, would follow him out of the stadium regardless of how the story got told. Across from him stood Luis de la Fuente, a coach who had spent years being underestimated, quietly assembling a Spanish squad that blended battle-tested veterans with a generational crop of teenage talent. De La Fuente's Spain had already claimed a European championship under his watch. Tonight offered the chance to complete something far bigger. The stadium noise before kickoff told its own story. French blue mixing with Spanish red under the Texas lights. Both sets of fans certain their team was walking out as favorites. Flags waved from every tier. Chants rolled down from the upper deck and echoed off the stadium's retractable roof. Neutrals everywhere braced for fireworks, for end-to-end football, for a match that might be remembered as one of the great semifinals in tournament history. Predictions ahead of kickoff lean toward chaos. 2 heavyweight attacks, 2 sets of world-class individual talent, a stage built for moments of magic. Pundits spoke about which French forward might break Spain's backline first, about whether Yamal's dribbling could unlock a French defense that had looked shaky in stretches earlier in the tournament. Almost nobody predicted what actually unfolded a match, defined not by chaos, but by control. They got something different. They got a masterclass. The first half unfolded cautiously, both sides testing each other, neither willing to overcommit against attacking talent that could punish any mistake. France probed through Mbappé and Dembélé, looking for the gaps that had opened up for them in earlier rounds. Spain, patient as always, kept the ball, kept their shape, and waited. There was a rhythm to those opening minutes that felt almost deceptive in its calm. Spain circulated possession from side to side, patient triangles built through Pedri, through Fermin, through the fullbacks pushing high and wide. It wasn't thrilling in the traditional sense, no end-to-end chances, no frantic scrambles in either box, but it was purposeful. Every pass seemed to be searching for something specific, probing for the seam in France's defensive setup that would eventually give way. France, for their part, looked to break quickly whenever they won the ball back, trusting the searing pace of Mbappe and Dembélé to turn transition moments into scoring chances. A few early sequences hinted at exactly that threat: a driving run from Dembélé down the right, a clever disguised pass from Doué threading between Spanish center backs, but nothing quite connected. The final ball was half a beat too slow, or the run arrived a fraction too late, and Spain's defense, organized with the discipline of a team that had rehearsed exactly these scenarios for months, snuffed out each threat before it could fully develop. Around the 15-minute mark, Yamal began to find pockets of space down the right, cutting inside onto his favored left foot and forcing France's defenders into uncomfortable decisions. It was a preview of the danger that would eventually swing the game. The waiting paid off in the 22nd minute. A ball worked into the box found Lamine Yamal in a dangerous pocket of space, and as he shifted to attack it, France's left back Lucas Digne came across late and caught him inside the area. The referee pointed immediately to the spot. Up stepped Mikel Oyarzabal, ice in his veins. A veteran forward who had waited years for a stage exactly like this one, he placed the ball on the spot without a flicker of hesitation, sent the goalkeeper the wrong way, and rolled the penalty into the corner. Spain led, 22 minutes on the clock, and the Spanish end of the stadium erupted into a wall of noise and red smoke. For France, it was suddenly the position they never wanted to be in, chasing a Spanish side that thrives on nothing more than the ball at its feet and a lead to protect. Deschamps' team searched for a response, pushing bodies forward, funneling possession toward Mbappe and Doué, hoping for the kind of individual moment that had bailed them out so many times before in this tournament, the moments that had carried them through the knockout rounds and kept the dream of a third straight final alive. It never quite arrived. Spain's backline, organized, aggressive, utterly unbothered by the reputations in front of them, closed down every avenue. Passes into the final third were intercepted before they could develop into anything dangerous. Shots, when they came, were rushed, blocked, or comfortably held by the Spanish goalkeeper, who was rarely tested with anything requiring a spectacular save. The rest of the first half settled into a pattern that would come to define the entire match. Spain content to let France carry the ball into areas where it posed no real threat, happy to concede possession in deep, non-dangerous zones while protecting the spaces that matter. Every time the tempo threatened to rise, Spain found a way to lower it again. A foul won cleanly, a throw-in taken slowly, a goal kick that restarted the patient build-up from the back. At halftime, Spain led 1-0, and more tellingly, they led on merit. The French had produced flickers, not fire. Possession numbers from the opening period were close to even, but the quality of the chances told an entirely different story. Spain's shots carried real threat, while France's had been speculative, hopeful, low-percentage efforts from distance or tight angles. In the tunnel, there was a growing sense among neutrals watching around the world that something historic and painful for France might be unfolding. Commentary teams across broadcasts began drawing comparisons to other nights when a heavily favored attacking side had been quietly dismantled by a team that simply refused to let them play. The second half began with Spain doing what Spain does best, strangling the tempo of the match, refusing to let France ever settle into a rhythm. Every time Les Bleus tried to build through midfield, Pedri or Fermin would step in, win back possession, and start another patient rebuild from deep. It was suffocating to watch if you wore blue, and it was beautiful if you wore red. Deschamps made his first tactical tweak shortly after the restart, shifting his structure to try to force more numbers into midfield and disrupt Spain's rhythm at the source. For a few minutes, it seemed to work. France won back-to-back possessions in dangerous areas, and a half chance fell to Olise on the edge of the box that fizzed just over the crossbar. It was the closest France had come to troubling the Spanish goalkeeper all night, and for a moment the momentum threatened to shift. But Spain answered in the way that champions in waiting so often do, not with panic but with a goal. The killer blow landed in the 58th minute. Dani Olmo, drifting into space just outside the box, played a sharp give and go with his right back Pedro Porro. Porro surged into the pocket, the pass created, took the return ball in stride, and side-footed it calmly past Mike Maignan into the far corner, 2-0. And with it, the match and perhaps an era tilted decisively. The goal was so smooth, so inevitable looking in the replay, that it almost understated the ruthlessness behind it. Spain didn't need a moment of magic. They needed one gap, one give and go, one composed finish. That's precisely what elite teams do to opponents who are chasing the game they make, the difficult look procedural. Porro's finish barely raised his teammates' celebrations above a jog toward the corner flag. There was a sense, even in that moment, that the outcome of the match had already been settled. France searched for a way back into it. Deschamps rang the changes, throwing on fresh legs, urging his front four to find something, anything that could crack Spain's back line open. Substitutes entered with instructions to take players on, to force turnovers, to manufacture chaos where structure had failed. For a stretch, the game turned scrappy and physical as France pressed higher, daring Spain to make a mistake in transition. Spain, for their part, seemed almost amused by the chase. They controlled long spells of possession simply to run the clock and drain the energy out of France's search for an equalizer, stringing together 20, 30 passes at a time in areas of the pitch that posed no danger to their own goal, but slowly sapped the life out of the French pursuit. There was a moment when Yamal himself thought he'd put the game entirely out of reach, curling in a finish from close range that briefly sent the red half of the stadium into celebration, only for the assistant referee's flag to go up offside. Called back, the goal that wasn't barely registered as a disappointment on the Spanish bench, it didn't matter in the end. 2 goals against this opponent on this night were enough. By the time the 90 minutes wound down, France were still searching, still pushing numbers forward in increasingly desperate fashion, and Spain were still absorbing it all with the calm of a team that had done this exact thing. Soak up pressure, protect a clean sheet over and over throughout the tournament. It had become almost a signature. Opponents generating volume without quality. Statistics that looked competitive on paper but told a hollow story in practice. The fourth officials board went up. A handful of stoppage time minutes remained, and in those closing moments it became unmistakably clear, barring a miracle, France's World Cup was over. 7 minutes of stoppage time. That's what the fourth official signaled as the second half wound toward its conclusion, and for France, every one of those minutes felt like a countdown toward an ending they never saw coming when the tournament began. There's a particular cruelty to stoppage time when you're the team chasing the game. Every fresh minute added to the clock is, in theory, another chance to find the goal that changes everything. In practice, against a defense playing with this level of control, it becomes something closer to a formality. Extra time, not for hope, but for confirmation of what has already been decided. France pushed numbers forward one final time, launching balls into the box, hunting for a scrap, a deflection, anything. Spain's back line, unmoved by the occasion, cleared wave after wave with the same calm efficiency they'd shown for the previous 80-plus minutes. Think about where this French squad stood just weeks earlier. A golden generation stacked with attacking talent. Mbappé at the peak of his powers, Dembélé finally healthy and electric, Doué announcing himself as one of the sport's brightest young stars, Olise pulling strings from the flank. This was a team built to make a third consecutive World Cup final, a feat no nation in the history of the tournament had ever managed. Brazil came close. Germany came close. Nobody had done it. And for long stretches of this tournament, France looked every bit capable of writing that chapter. Group stage wins built on individual brilliance. A knockout round performance where Mbappé looked simply unplayable for 20 minutes. Doué's emergence as a genuine match winner at the age of barely 20. This was a team that had at times seemed to be playing a different sport from its opponents. But football has a way of humbling even its most talented sides, and on this particular Tuesday night in Texas, they ran into a Spanish team playing at the peak of its collective power. Not a team of individual superstars overwhelming opponents through sheer talent, but a genuine collective 11 players and a bench full of replacements, all executing the same defensive principles with total conviction, all trusting the structure over any individual heroics. It's worth pausing on just how complete Spain's defensive performance was. Across the full 90-plus minutes, France's vaunted attack, 4 players who between them have terrorized defenses across Europe all season, managed only a handful of shots on target and barely half a expected goal's worth of genuine quality. Chances. Not because France stopped trying, because Spain refused to let them try effectively. Every through ball was cut out. Every cross was headed clear. Every half yard of space was closed before it could be exploited. This is what happens when a team's midfield trio operates with the kind of telepathy Spain's has developed. Pedri drops deep to collect. Firmine pushes forward to support, and the ball moves through pressure like water finding cracks in stone. Behind them, a back line calibrated for exactly this kind of occasion, disciplined, physical when it needed to be, composed on the ball when it wasn't defending. Consider the broader arc of Spain's tournament. Match after match, opponent after opponent, the same pattern repeated itself. Control the ball, control the tempo, wait for the opening, take it clinically when it arrives. It's a formula that can look almost boring in isolation, stripped of the frantic end-to-end drama that fans often crave. But it is devastatingly effective, and on the biggest stage of all, effectiveness is worth infinitely more than style points. The numbers from this particular semifinal will be picked apart for days. Final third entries roughly even between the two sides. Overall possession nearly split down the middle. Total shots identical at 10 apiece. On the surface, a competitive, closely fought match, but shots on target told a sharper story and expected goals sharper still. France's attack, for all its individual quality, managed only a fraction of a goal's worth of genuinely high-value chances across the full 90-plus minutes. Spain's defense had done exactly what it set out to do: rob one of the most dangerous front lines in the tournament of the space and time it needed to operate. As the final whistle approached, the cameras found Mbappe standing near the center circle, hands on hips, staring at nothing in particular. It's the kind of image that becomes iconic in hindsight. A superstar watching a golden opportunity slip away, not through any individual failing of his own, but because the opponent in front of him simply refused to give an inch all night. And then it came. The whistle. Full time. France 0, Spain 2. The Spanish end of AT&T Stadium erupted in scenes that had been building toward this moment for 16 years. Not since 2010, the country's only previous World Cup triumph, had Spain stood this close to lifting the trophy again. Players collapsed to the turf in celebration, staff members embraced along the touchline, and in the stands, 60-plus thousand voices found the kind of unrestrained joy that only a World Cup semi-final win can produce. Flares and smoke bombs lit the concourses outside the stadium in red, and social media lit up within seconds with a single message repeated in a dozen languages: Spain is back in a World Cup final. For the Spanish players themselves, the celebration carried a different weight depending on who you asked. For the veterans who remembered years of near misses and quarterfinal exits, it was vindication. For the teenagers in the squad, Yamal chief among them, it was simply the continuation of a rise that has felt, at times, almost inevitable since the moment he first pulled on the senior shirt. For France, the emotions ran entirely the opposite direction. Players stood rooted to the pitch, some with hands on their heads, others simply staring at the turf, processing an ending that felt almost surreal in its suddenness. This was a squad that had walked into the tournament with legitimate designs on history, and it walked out having been outclassed, not outfought, by a Spanish side that made the difficult look routine. Mbappé embraced several Spanish opponents near the center circle, a gesture of respect between players who will likely share a locker room rival's mutual admiration for years to come, before making the long walk toward the tunnel. Didier Deschamps, for his part, faced the media with the composure that has defined his decade-plus tenure in charge of the national team. He offered no excuses, no complaints about refereeing decisions or moments of misfortune, simply an acknowledgement that Spain had been the superior team on the night and that his side had not found a way to solve the puzzle in front of them. Whatever comes next for French football, and there is already speculation about whether Zinedine Zidane might finally take the reins of the national side. He once inspired to glory as a player. This result will hang over the conversation. A team with this much individual brilliance, undone not by bad luck or a moment of misfortune, but by an opponent that was simply, comprehensively, the better side over 90-plus minutes. It's the kind of defeat that invites reflection rather than excuse-making, the kind that federations and supporters alike tend to view as a genuine changing of the guard rather than a bad night at the office. For a France side that has now reached the final or the semi-final stage in 3 consecutive tournaments, the disappointment will be sharp, but the underlying talent pool remains the envy of most of the footballing world. Whoever takes charge next inherits a squad still brimming with players in their early to mid-20s, several of whom will likely be considered among the finest of their generation for years to come. The immediate pain of this elimination doesn't erase the broader trajectory. It simply means the current chapter closes without the ending so many had expected. There is a certain symmetry to how this tournament has unfolded for these two nations. France had been here before back-to-back finals, a squad that always seemed to find a way through when it mattered most, whether through moments of magic or sheer force of will. This time, the way through simply wasn't there. Spain didn't need moments of individual brilliance to beat them, though they had those too. They needed only their structure, their patience, and 2 clinically taken goals, a penalty won by their most electric talent, and a training ground move finished with total composure by a fullback in space. For Spain, the story now shifts forward. A place awaits in Sunday's final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey against the winner of the second semifinal between Argentina and England, 2 nations meeting under their own weight of history, with Argentina chasing back-to-back titles that only Brazil has ever managed in 1958 and 1962, and England chasing a first World Cup since 1966. A drought that has defined generations of English football conversation. Whichever side emerges from that Atlanta clash, they'll find a Spanish team waiting in New Jersey that has now gone the better part of an entire tournament without conceding more than a single goal, a defensive record built match after match, culminating in a semi-final shutout of one of the most gifted attacking lineups assembled at this World Cup. It's a record that places this Spanish side among the most defensively dominant teams to ever reach a World Cup final, and it will make them a daunting proposition for whoever walks out at MetLife Stadium on Sunday. There's also a symbolic thread running through this Spanish campaign. This is a European champion, having lifted the Continental Trophy before arriving in North America, now 90 minutes away from pairing it with the sport's ultimate prize. Few nations in the modern era have managed to hold both titles simultaneously, and a win on Sunday would place this Spanish generation in genuinely rarefied company. As for France, there's still a game left to play Saturday's third-place match, a fixture nobody wants to be part of after falling one step short of the final, but an opportunity nonetheless for this group of players to give their fans one last performance before the tournament closes the book on this particular chapter of French football. Expect Deschamps to use the occasion to give minutes to squad players who saw limited action earlier in the competition, a final chance for fringe contributors to leave their own mark on this World Cup before the plane ride home. What remains, more than anything, is the image of a Spanish side that arrived in Texas with a mission and executed it with almost clinical detachment from the occasion's enormity. 16 years after their only world title, La Roja are 1 win away from a second star. And on this night in Arlington, against a team many believed unstoppable, they made the case that this generation might just be built to finish the job. 4 days remain until the final whistle of this World Cup blows for the very last time. Spain will be there, rested, confident, and playing with the calm authority of a team that has answered every question asked of it so far. The question that remains is who they'll be standing across from when it does, and whether either Argentina or England has an answer for the kind of suffocating, patient, ruthlessly efficient football that just ended France's dream on a July night in Texas.